Hello, veterinary friends. Welcome to the Veterinary Life Coach Podcast. Today, I have a wonderful return guest for you. His name is Shawn Wilkie. He is a serial entrepreneur, a technology enthusiast who has founded 6 startups so far over the past 20 plus years. He's a passionate supporter of the pet health industry. Shawn has worked tirelessly to create tools that positively impact veterinary professionals, both in their day-to-day clinical operations and personal lives. He is currently the CEO of Talkatoo, a company that provides AI software that saves veterinary professionals significant time on tedious record keeping to reduce burnout and allow them to spend more time with their patients and on their own self-care. He also produces and co-hosts the highly engaging Veterinary Innovation Podcast, and I'm delighted to have him back. Welcome back to the podcast, Shawn.
Julie, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great. Your people reached out to me and asked if I'd have you on the podcast, and I'm like, oh, I had him on episode 81, and I remember it was really a great time talking to you, so I'm glad you agreed to come back. So, our plan today is to talk about a burnout survey that you did and also how to address that, how we can improve our relationship with relief vets and how to be less burned out, I'm guessing, as a relief vet. Is that right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like a hell of a topic. Let's
I know
jump in.
it's a lot of a mouthful and I'm stumbling over my words, but that's what we thought we'd talk about today, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess as a way of a little bit of background, we partnered with Serenity Vets. They're a relief platform, kind of helping with scheduling of relief veterinarians and clinics. Um, uh, my co-host is also involved in that company, so it was a natural fit for us to kind of produce this burnout survey. And we wanted to specifically look at relief veterinarians and the state of burnout in relief veterinarians. And we found all kinds of really interesting things. Um, and I think the top things that we found out is that burnout in relief veterinarians is growing faster than in any of the other groups that we studied burnout in. And it doesn't seem like an obvious thing, but when you
No.
dig into the details, there's lots of reasons why it's obvious.
Makes sense. So that was part of the survey, the detailed background of why people feel burned out
Yeah, specifically as a relief
as a
veterinarian.
relief vet. Okay, cool. Well, tell us about it.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it was so interesting because I guess as leading into the conversation, we were talking about your experience leaving, a practice that you owned and transitioning to relief vet. And I know that was a
Yes.
long time ago now, but
Yeah, did that.
it's fascinating because what you're doing, if you're transitioning to relief vet from full-time employment, is you're making a big transition from being a full-time employee and having a stable paycheck that comes in every 2 weeks to
Right.
being a business owner.
Yeah, you're an entrepreneur, right?
And that's a big transition because why? Because income insecurity. If you don't have clinics that want to take up all your time,
Right.
that's a problem. Or if you have 3 clinics that want you on the same week, you now need to figure out how to manage that. So
Sure.
there's this all of this income insecurity, there's financial security, there's all of these things that we don't think of when we think of being a free agent or joining the gig economy, as
Yeah,
a relief veterinarian.
we don't think of it as an entrepreneurship or starting a business. Because nobody says I want to get out of my vet hospital where I feel burned out to start my own business. That's not how they think of it when they go to relief work. Is that part of the
No,
disconnect? The thought?
or even absolutely. And even if you're not running your own veterinary clinic, and I think this is where a lot of growth as we've seen in the last couple of years in relief veterinarians. It's not people that are running their own clinic, transitioning to relief, although that's a portion of the market. It's people that are burnt out in private practice that are thinking, I want to be my own boss. I want to be a relief veterinarian. I want to control my destiny, control my schedule. And then there's all of these things that follow them on that journey that maybe people weren't so sure of when they started it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because if you think I'm going to control my own schedule, you're still not really in control of your schedule. You're at the mercy of who needs you, right? And when
That's
they need
right. Exactly.
you.
Yeah, and that yes, one would say that there's greater autonomy because you can say yes or no,
Or no, right?
um, or you can choose the clients that you want to work with, the veterinary hospitals that you want to work in. But these other problems, the relationship between like burnout and financial security, these show up even more pronounced than before when you're
Sure.
transitioning from full-time employment to relief work.
Right. Yeah. Were there other like factors that you surveyed? Like what were the questions on the survey that you were asking people?
There was so much. It was a very comprehensive survey done with statistically relevant
So,
design. But one of some of the other things that came up is just like the overwhelm from technology. So imagine you
yeah,
go from one practice that's running Avamark and you've been using it for 6 years and you know where all the buttons are,
exactly what their
you
schedule,
know
what
how
their
that particular hospital, what the layout was and what fields they fill and what they don't, and you've got accustomed to it, and now all of a sudden you're working as a relief vet and you're working in six different clinics and there's six different technology stacks, and wow, talk about overwhelm,
right,
right? So
right,
you now have to go in from dealing with one technology stack to maybe six different ones, and that's also another consideration that most people don't think of when they're making that transition.
right. You don't consider
So
that
we
as being an issue.
No, because it's just not a thing, right? You just think every clinic uses Avamark
It's
or
going to
every
be
clinic
easy,
uses
right?
Cornerstone.
Or I can figure it out.
That's right. And so it's just, it's part of those growing pains, part of picking clients is kind of figuring out how to use it. And the obvious kind of, I guess, place where we connected with this survey is we build tools that can be used with any practice management software. Talkatoo allows you to record the entire consult that's happening, and then we generate a comprehensive SOAP note. So we actually love working with relief vets, um, for a bunch of different reasons. But one is that they're really huge advocates for our software with the clinics that they work in because they have a solution about how to write their medical records quick and in a standardized way. And a lot of the veterinary clinics that they go to work in don't have an AI scribe or haven't worked with a technology like ours. And so
Right.
they promote the software. And that was why we commission the study. We want to get more customers, and
Yeah.
relief vets are a great way to get them. And we also help with the burden of all of that technology uncertainty, because if a SOAP note can be generated by the time the appointment's over, they have a little bit more time to work with the technology to figure it out because they might have to figure out five or six different practice management systems.
How to put those notes in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it just makes it easier.
Sure.
Yeah, and then the one other thing that happened, Julie, or that we really like with relief veterinarians, and I guess a topic for this conversation is how can those relief veterinarians that are coming into your clinic be seen as more than just a doctor that's coming in to fill shifts or to make sure that your hospital is able to be open. I think relief veterinarians actually create an incredible opportunity for veterinary hospital owners to take advantage of. Because if those relief veterinarians are working in five or six different hospitals, you can bet your bottom dollar that they're going to have some answers to some of the questions that your hospital might be suffering from. If they've worked in a hospital that's incredibly efficient for the last year, they might have already solved a bunch of the issues that your hospital is struggling with. So I think there's a real opportunity to foster more collaboration with relief veterinarians to kind of be more than just a warm body that's coming in to make sure that your business can still operate. I think there's a lot of problem solving and exposure to different ways of working that can benefit a lot of the people that use these relief veterinarians.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I don't know if I told you my story before, but I had hired a relief veterinarian years ago at my practice, and she became a friend of mine, and she really enjoyed my practice. So, but she didn't want to become a employee, and I wanted to hire her. So I kept her for over 15 years as a relief vet. And I just had her scheduled 1 or 2 days a week whenever she could. And she was like one of my regular doctors. But we did gain a lot of that experience from the other hospitals that she worked in because she'd come to my hospital every week and say, "Hey, at this other hospital, they're doing such and such. Maybe you try this." And she was a wealth of information. And so I'm one of those people that really promotes using these relief vets to their fullest extent because they're really helpful.
Yeah, it sounds like it made a massive impact on your business.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, I loved her.
I think it's really interesting. I mean, and I'd love to dive into that a little bit more. Like from your perspective, how do you put yourself in that mindset or how did you put yourself in that mindset of I'm the owner, but I have this resource that I could leverage to make the business better?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit difficult from the financial end because, as a general rule, relief vets cost us a little bit more than if we were to just hire someone. Like I could have hired a new grad and probably got more hours out of that person and paid them less than I got out of this relief vet when I had her 2 days a week or whatever. But I was of the mindset that she was such a smart individual. She was such a good influence on my practice. And she came with the added benefit of she knew other practices that were doing other things, and she would come with information that she gained from other hospitals. And and I really liked her and got along with her well, and so I wanted to keep her. So I had to change the mindset from, I'm getting a relief vet just to make money to she might cost me slightly more, but the benefits to having her here outweigh that, situation. And I didn't have to pay her health insurance and I didn't have to pay for her CE. And like there was a lot of advantages too, where I had her when I wanted her and I didn't have to pay all the benefits that most
Yeah,
people
it's
get.
interesting. I mean, given the current state of the, you know, global economy, um, there's a lot of advantages there, right? If you have a relief vet and you're not busy, then you
Send
could
her
just
home.
say, we don't need you to come in, or you could go home.
Right.
So, I think there's a lot of advantage and disadvantage. Now, if you're the business owner, that seems like a lot of advantage, especially given the current kind of climate that we're working in.
Right.
As a relief vet, now you can kind of tie it back to the burnout survey and say, well, geez, that would create a lot of financial insecurity,
Sure.
right? So there's
Yeah.
there's two coins, or two sides to every coin. And
Yep.
it's interesting, from the relief veterinarian, you get the positive of a bit of scheduling autonomy, and maybe you want to take the summers off, or maybe you want to do this thing or that thing, and now you can. But then you also have to make hay when the sun is shining. You're probably not going to be taking the summers off because that's when all the vets want to take their regularly scheduled vacations. So it requires
Exactly.
a bit of shift in mindset to
Right.
do that job and to be successful at it. But there's also all of these advantages on either side of the coin.
Yeah. As a life coach, I do a lot of this mindset work, right? And so I think if you look at the big picture and you see there's advantages and disadvantages of hiring a relief vet, being a relief vet, you can change your mindset in any direction and make it better. Like my husband would say, "Well, why do you keep her? She's expensive. She costs you a lot per hour." I said, "Because number one, she makes my life better because she's a really smart veterinarian and she teaches me a lot. She's a hard worker. She trains the technicians. Like she was one of those people that I could really sit back and just know that when she was there, the practice was going to run well. And so for me, it was like, yeah, she costs a little bit more, but it's worth it to me because I don't have to babysit her. So I think
It's so
I think
fascinating.
you can do that in any direction with the mindset work.
You can if you have an open enough mind to be able to do it, right?
Sure.
That's a prerequisite for the person trying to change the mindset.
Yeah, you have
And
to
it
work on that.
It really makes me think of like this fable, which I don't know if it's true or not, but there's a ship that has a problem with the engine, and there's a guy that shows up with a hammer, and he walks over to the engine, he taps on the ship's engine, and the ship's not able to move, nothing works. Taps on the engine, uh, he's there for 2 minutes, engine starts up again, sends a $25,000 invoice, and the guy that gets the invoice said, "You were here for 2 minutes. Like, why did you charge me $25,000?" And he's like, "You're not paying for the time, you're paying for the experience." And I think that that holds true in your example with relief work. And just last week, we at my company Talkatoo, we hired a facilitator, a coach that came in and did a 1 day workshop for us. And it was a lot for me to convince my leadership team to hire this guy. $10,000 for the day. $10,000 for the day seemed like a lot of money. And oftentimes in business, whether we're a relief veterinarian, we're running a veterinary hospital, we're running a software company, we can be pound foolish and penny wise, or penny wise and pound foolish, however you want to look at it.
Right.
And the experience that we had last week, we could see the tens of thousands of dollars of savings and efficiency gains that we got through this 1 day immediately. And
Right.
even the skeptics on my team were like, oh my God, I'm so glad we did that.
They were convinced that it was worth it.
100% at the
Yeah.
end of the day. Everybody
Right.
scored the meeting super high, and everybody was like, oh, we should have probably done this years ago, which is unbelievable.
Right. Yeah. But you don't know what you
So,
don't know, right?
yeah, that's right. And I guess that's the reason that we're having this conversation. So, for all of those owners out there that are hiring relief vets and they're not maximizing them, not that I'm interviewing you, but I feel like the tables have turned. What advice would you give to them when they're looking at having relief vets in their practice and maybe they're not taking full advantage of the fact that they're there?
Yeah. I guess my advice is more about um, thinking about them differently than you're just paying somebody by the hour to fill a hole. Like trying to find the relief that works with your team and that can actually bring added value. Because most of us as hospital owners, we have to hire relief vets over the years. Like I would hire a new vet and they'd work for me for 5 or 6 years and then they would want to go part-time and now I need a relief vet till I can find another vet. Like that's kind of how it works when you're the owner. So you do have the opportunity to hire relief vets at different times in your business ownership, and or if you just need a vacation and you're a solo owner, you have to hire one. I think thinking about that as an investment in your business to find the right one, not just the cheapest one that can like babysit your team, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense.
I, as a owner, I was of the opinion that I would kind of interview the relief vets by hiring them for 1 day, not hiring them for weeks on end, right at the beginning. Have them in for 1 day, see how they work, see how much money they can bring in, see how they treat my team, see how they treat my clients before I hire them back again. I had one relief vet over, this was a long time ago, but I hired a relief vet and she was there for 1 hour. And my team was coming up to me and saying, "You didn't hire her, did you? You didn't hire her, did you?" And I was like, "Just for today. She's here for 1 day." And they were like, "Please don't bring her back." And so in one
It's
hour, my team knew that she was just a disaster. And she was a disaster. She was challenging me. She didn't like the way we did this. She didn't like the way we did that. I'm like, "Hey, you're working for me right now." So I never hired her back again. But I think just the idea that you're interviewing these relief vets to fit into your team, not just fill up a spot. And then if your team
yeah,
has that same mindset, they're going to treat these people better too, because they're going to
100%.
be part of your team then. That's the
And
way
you
I would think
imagine
of it.
I think it makes total sense. And I love your experience of how you found this person. And when she came in, you're like, I can really go on vacation now because not
Oh, yeah.
only is the clinic going to function, it's going to function really well. It sounds like, as good, if not maybe better than when you were there,
Oh, she was
because
way smarter
that's
than I was by a long shot. She was just a genius type of person. Yeah.
and
So
so
the
that's
clients were going to
incredible,
get
right?
good
Like,
care. Hmm.
and gonna emanate your culture and make sure that people get the care that they need and make sure that they're not making waves with the team. And so, like, that's kind of the topic, right? It's like
Right.
relief vets can be more than just somebody coming in to make sure that doors stay open or that the clients get seen. They can be somebody that's fostering collaboration in the practice, enhancing your technology stack, problem solving with issues if you want. That's all available. And
Right.
maybe that relief that is doing all of those things costs, $100 more a day, but maybe they actually drive a bunch more value and revenue for the practice. And you should look at them as not can I don't think we can afford them, but maybe we can't afford not to hire somebody like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, that's what I used to say to my
Yeah, so
husband. 'Cause he would always challenge me with this woman that I hired. He's like, "Well, why don't you get someone cheaper?" And I'd be like, "Cause I like her and I can rely on her and she's smart and she teaches me things and I just want to have her here and I'm the owner, so I can spend more money on her if I want." And that's kind of how I thought
so
of it.
interesting. It's so interesting. One of the other things that I've heard come up recently for onboarding in a veterinary hospital, relief vet or not, um, is one of the things that I heard, and I can't remember. I was at a Purina conference recently speaking in Switzerland for them, and this incredible speaker got up and she said, when a relief vet comes into your practice, what are the things that they absolutely must know about the way that you do things at your practice? Having a one-page document that they can review, and these are the absolute unchangeables in our practice, and kind of setting up that collaboration by giving them everything that they need to be successful, helps foster that collaboration between the clinic and the relief veterinarian that's coming in.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. Treating them like someone you just hired by giving them
Exactly.
like this is our culture, these are our values, this is what we expect. I love that because I don't think that's done often.
No.
I did some relief work and nobody ever did that to me. They just kind of like, "Hi, you're here," and you're just kind of you just have to figure it out.
And every practice has those non-negotiables, or this is the way that we do this. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's only by being in that practice for 5 years that these things. But
Right.
taking the time to write them down on a piece of paper and be like,
Love
here's
that.
what you absolutely need to know in order to work well here, is so easy.
Yeah. Do you think that would help with the relief vets and their burnout?
A
If
hundred
if
percent,
if every time they walked in, somebody said, "Here's how we do it."
100%. Clarity
Agreed.
creates happiness.
Oh,
When we're
that's a
not
good line.
clear, or when we think that we need to, learn by osmosis, or learn by,
Stressful.
reading minds, it doesn't work.
Right. Well, and I just did, I was telling you before we got on here, I just did a little presentation on burnout. And the real definition of burnout is just chronic stress. So if you're constantly putting yourself into a situation that's uncomfortable and starting at a new practice is uncomfortable and introducing yourself to new people and being in an environment that you're not familiar with, that's going to lead to burnout if you don't have any idea of what each practice wants you to do or so I think having some instructions is an excellent idea.
Yeah, just a one pager. It's goes back to the technology piece, right? If you're a relief vet
Right.
working at 6 different practices, all of them use 6 different programs. Like, one of the things that was really surprising in the burnout survey is the vets or the relief vets that used AI Scribe, Talkatoo, or one of the other 15 that are out there.
Right.
They actually reported lower rates of burnout because
Mm.
they knew that worst case scenario, their documentation was taken care of. And
Yeah.
maybe it wasn't in exactly where it needed to go, but at least they knew that they had a medical record and they could get it in at some point, as opposed to trying to do it on the fly in a brand new system and trying to familiarize themselves with all of that at the same time.
Yeah. So that's one thing, that the instructions is one, then having some sort of scribe system is another. If you're a relief vet, and even if you're not, I would think that that would be an important thing to have in your practice in general.
Oh yeah, I mean the whole boom, Julie, when we talked back in
I know.
2020,
I'm really bummed that I kind of missed this part.
when we
I'm like, I
talked.
used to have to write up all my records, and now I could just like have AI do it. I love that.
Yeah, it's actually unbelievable. We were back in 2020 as a company, the first kind of productivity company in veterinary medicine. We
Right.
were searching for a way that we could help with the burden of medical records because it's like the one hair on fire issue that has been around forever.
And
Nobody
everyone hates it. Who likes to write up records? We didn't get into vet med to sit at a desk, right?
I've met a few people over the years that said that they do like it, but like we're talking like a handful out of
Not very
thousands
many.
of
Yeah.
veterinarians that I've met.
I
So
hate it.
it's this one issue that's just persistent. It's always there, whether it's documenting like phone calls, like getting off the phone and typing everything that you just said when you're doing callbacks,
Right.
or writing up the medical records or the discharge summaries. AI has showed up in such a powerful way. This use case, like AI, whatever side of the coin you're on, whether it's good or bad, you love it or you hate it, AI in this particular use case of medical documentation, regardless of the industry, veterinary, human health, doesn't matter. It's the number one use case for AI, the number one adopted use case across all of these industries is documentation. Because
Right.
for the first time ever, we can record, interpret, and produce a formatted medical record that is in the format that you as the veterinarian choose. It doesn't
Right.
have to be our SOAP format. It can be your SOAP format. We can use
Right.
bullets or commas or red text or blue text. It can be formatted exactly how your existing records are, and it's done the minute you stop the conversation. Now, it's not 100% because if you didn't mention the temperature, it's not going to make it up. But
Sure.
everything that was mentioned in the consult will be in the record. And the most incredible thing with this scribe revolution is you have a recording of everything that happened in the room. So if you have to go back for clarity, you've got the whole thing recorded. And so
Right.
it's been a massive, massive change. And relief vets are no small part of it because a lot of relief vets are using this technology. They're going into hospitals that don't have a scribe solution because it's been widely adopted. Probably about 40% of hospitals and doctors are using some form of AI scribe already. And we've
Right.
had incredible growth as a company as this wave's happened. It's been just amazing to see the adoption levels of this technology, but it's because it has real utility. You
Right.
have this recording, you have a medical record, you can't forget something that's recorded because you can always play it again.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think part of the stress that causes burnout in vet med is worrying that you forgot to write something in your record, or worrying that if you get a client complaint that you're not going to be able to remember. Like there's so much of that that's involved in writing up your records that it has to be easier to have Talkatoo or one of those write up your record for you, because then you can't really forget anything unless you forgot in the room, obviously, if you forgot to say something. But just getting that complete record written up has got to be so much easier. Because I was always scribbling notes and then having to go back and what does that note mean? Ah, I forgot what I said. And that causes stress.
Oh, and it's not just that. It's like you're going to bed, you're in bed, you're tucked underneath the covers, you had a great supper, you had tea before you went to bed, you did your
Yeah,
meditation,
you've
and
fallen
then you turn
asleep.
off all the lights and you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I forgot to put that in the record. And then you maybe write it down,
Right.
maybe turn your laptop
Freak
on and
out.
log in.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that mental load um, can just be completely removed.
Right. Yeah.
And it is literally life-changing for the people that adopt this technology, because that whole burden just disappears.
Right.
Or,
Yeah.
or maybe that's unfair. Like, I don't think it disappears, but it goes from like 100% burden to like a 10 or 20% burden. And that's like life-changing for people.
Sure. Yeah. If your stress goes from 90 down to 10, you're
You're
gonna
good. You're good.
you're in pretty good shape.
90 to 10 normally is like work to beer on a beach, right? Like normally
Right.
get there.
Exactly.
But if you
Yeah.
can go from your regular work day where you're spending a couple of hours at the end of the day finalizing your records to recording everything and spending, 10 or 20 minutes at the end of the day finalizing records, or a few minutes between appointments, we're talking about an absolute and total change of your work reality.
Right. Right. So are you still finding people that own hospitals not wanting to put in some scribe system into their clinic? Like, are there pushbacks from like the old, I hate to be one of the old people, but I know I worked with a lot of older vets in my career, and some of them just never wanted to take on anything different. Do you still find that, or is everybody like on board?
No, I think that will exist as long as there's humans in veterinary medicine.
Yeah,
Right?
well,
Like, it's a very human thing to do, to
change.
not want to change, right? Like,
Right.
change
Not
is
like change.
hard. And like, yeah, and why do we change? We change because we realize there's something in it for us that we want.
Right.
So, and the arguments are pretty compelling, like an extra 10 hours of documentation that can go away on a weekly basis, or maybe it's only 5, or maybe it's only 2, but 2 hours, you're going to give me 2 hours, like an
Right.
actual little 2 hours that I was using doing this thing before.
Right.
Um, so there's definitely been a lot of adoption, and the reason there's so many scribe companies is because it's such a great use case. It's, being the first,
Yeah,
only
you
to then
started it.
yeah, only to see what's happened has been absolutely epic for us. But yeah, there'll always be people that resist change, but the proof's in the pudding. I think John Ayres put out a study a little while ago and said that scribes are now in, over 50% of doctors have a scribe in North America, an AI scribe. That's unbelievable growth. That happened in literally like a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it wasn't at all when I first talked to you in 2020. I
No
mean, it
one
was
even
very
knew.
new. People were
Yeah,
like, what the heck is that?
yeah, well, our first domain name at Talkatoo was talkatoo.ai, and everybody would say, .ai, what does that mean?
What
Like
is that?
artificial
Yeah.
insemination,
Well, that's what we think it means because that's what
right?
we know.
Yeah, so
Right.
we changed and got the .com, but now it's funny how, we're kind of back to where everybody's talking about AI. And one of the fascinating things for me, Julie, is seeing how quickly veterinarians' expectations for AI have changed. The expectations are that there's this all-knowing AI that will do everything correct and will not make any mistakes.
Right.
And I guess
Not
you've
true.
heard it. You've heard it on Julie's show first. Uh, that's not reality, right?
Right.
It's really
Yeah.
good. It's 10 times or 100 times better than it was when we started in 2019, but it still makes mistakes, and you still have to review your medical records. Um, but man, oh man, does it save some time.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm shocked. I'm not much of an AI user, but I'm shocked when I write something, I can put it into AI and have it like read it and tell me where the mistakes are and fix the spelling mistakes and fix the punctuation. Like when I first discovered that, I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And now you can
It's
just put it in there and it'll
so
write the whole damn thing for you if you want. And I'm just like, it feels so weird to me, somebody that didn't grow up with this kind of
it is
idea.
it is weird. I mean, one of the things that kind of blew my mind the other day, I was having a conversation with a couple friends, and self-published books on Amazon have gone from about 100,000 a month to over 300,000 a month.
Because
So
people are
everybody's
having
able to write
AI
a
write
book,
them.
right? Yeah, you can take your memoirs or your meeting notes or your calendar or your inbox and say, write me an email or write me a book on what happened this year, and generate content like we never could before. So
Right.
we're creating a lot of not so great content.
Sure.
as we've moved away from journalists and now to this stage of AI, but
Right.
it's creating such an incredible shift. And it's so interesting that an industry like veterinary medicine that has really high rates of burnout, has the highest rate of suicide out of any profession, has had all of these innovators like me and Talkatoo and all of these other scribes show up and say, hey, burned out veterinarians, we can take 2 to 10 hours a week off your plate by you adopting AI. It's no
Yeah.
wonder we've gone from 0 to 50% adoption in a couple of years.
Yeah. Because people see that's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
So, was there anything else on the survey that you found important and interesting? Well, I'm sure there was a lot, but is there anything in particular that you wanted to point out to people who are either hiring relief vets or are relief thinking about going into relief or are relief vets themselves that you think is interesting that came out of the survey?
Yeah, I think, let me just read here a little bit. I'm just going through all of this
Yeah, because you
stuff.
talked about writing a manual if you're the
Yeah.
owner of the hospital, and you talked about being clear about your expectations. Probably on both sides, that's important, right? As a relief vet, you have to be clear. Um, I think one thing in particular I would say about that is if your team can be on board with relief vets, because I've heard so many horror stories of people going in as a relief and the team just kind of like checks out for the day because they know they're not going to get in trouble. So if you're a good team to have them pitch in and help the relief vets would probably be a good thing.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways is just, you know, from the peak, which is 2021, burnout scores among, veterinarians, associate veterinarians have actually declined. So that's a great thing.
I love that idea. Yeah, it's probably because
Burnout
of all the good life coaches and the people that are inventing AI.
Yes. But the interesting thing is, well, it's declined in all of those other areas of veterinary medicine. Relief veterinarians report some of the highest levels of satisfaction, and their life is improving, but they're also increasing their rates of burnout. So
Hmm,
it's
that's interesting.
really, really.
Doesn't seem to jive, does it?
Yeah, there was definitely some points like this where we're saying, okay, like the highest levels of satisfaction with lifestyle are showing up here for relief veterinarians, but lowest satisfaction with their profession overall. And
Hmm.
what comes into that are all the things that we've talked about already.
Right.
The economic uncertainty, the juggling multiple technology stacks. So it's easy to see why this stuff exists, but it's also fascinating to think that the once coveted solution to the problem of burnout is now actually maybe harder than it appeared.
Causing the burnout. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think on some level, and this is just me supposing, but I would think on some level, a lot of these people are going into relief work because they are burned out on vet med and they haven't dealt with that. They're thinking changing the career is going to
Yes.
change how they feel about the career. And I think from this side of the table, the coaching side, I think I've always told people like, don't quit your job until you've figured this out because when, the next thing you jump into, you're taking it with you. You're taking the burnout and the stress and all of that with
Well,
you.
and
You need to deal with it before you try to solve it by changing jobs. So maybe that's part of it.
I think it's great advice. And it's like the unknowns of a new job or a new career as a business owner. You just need to go into it eyes wide open. And if you haven't dealt with what was burning you out before, it might just find you again.
Sure. Yeah, because it's all up here, right? The stress is a lot of it is in our brain. It's not necessarily the circumstances that we're in, even though we're in highly stressful circumstances. I get that. But a lot of it is we have to deal with what's going on in us, the idea about the job, and then using the tools that some of us have available, like your
It's amazing.
scribes.
I remember saying, like, we carry our problems with us in a backpack, and no matter where we go, they'll find their way back into our life,
Right.
and
Yeah, you have to deal with them.
we think it's the person or the job or the city that we live in or all of these things, but really it's the way that we interact with those things. And just because we remove the location or the job, it's quite possible that they find their way back to us in our new scenario or setting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So I think we got a pretty good idea about the survey, at least on my end. I feel like I did. Do you want to tell people where they can find you, where they can find Talkatoo if they don't have an AI scribe? Tell a little bit about that
Yeah, absolutely.
before we have to wrap this up.
Yeah, absolutely, Julie. Thanks for the opportunity. So, Talkatoo people can find us at talkatoo.com, talkatoo.com.
Like
Um,
cockatoo.
you got it. Yeah, play on words. Yeah, we were lucky.
Yeah,
We got this. We got the
I
dot
love
com.
that. Yeah.
And yeah, happy to have a conversation with anybody. I'm not on most of the socials, but I am on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me at it's just Shawn Wilkie after the LinkedIn URL. And yeah, we'd love to show you our AI scribe, whether it's callbacks that you struggle with or writing medical records. Our suite of products is super comprehensive. We've been working and building it for almost a decade now as the first AI company in veterinary medicine. And we'd love to talk to anybody that's interested to learn more. And Julie, thanks so much for having me today.
Yeah. What's next before we quit? What are you working on for the next? Like, is there more that's going to come out that we're going to be like, whoa, now Talkatoo can do
Yeah, I think it's
bigger?
it's it's amazing. I mean, I'm pretty lucky. We've got a couple
Yeah.
of astrophysicists that work at Talkatoo. We've got a bunch of doctors. We've got a couple DVMs, and some really, really, really bright people. So we're always working on the next big
New
thing.
stuff.
We're
Yeah.
always looking for the next hair on fire problem that veterinary professionals are working with. And we think that there's lots of opportunity to really improve the way that clinics find your hospital, interact with your hospital, and leave happy. And so that's what we're constantly trying to do is really improve that pet journey through the hospital.
Right. And in turn, the client.
You
Yeah,
got
that's
it.
awesome.
Bingo.
Well, I really appreciate you being here today again. It was really fun getting back together with you. It's been a long time. I couldn't believe when you said 2020. I was like, whoa. But it's really cool that we got back together again and that you're still creating better and better tools for us veterinarians because we definitely need
Really,
it.
thanks so much. A decade later, it was as fun as the first time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. All right, everyone. This is Shawn Wilkie. Don't forget to look him up at Talkatoo and have a beautiful week. Bye. Bye, Shawn.
See you.